If you believe your own days are hard, then turn your eyes toward the cruelest corners of this planet, where simply staying alive feels stranger than the scenery surrounding it. In every part of the world, communities have raised their homes where the natural order appears to reject the very idea of living things. Whether clinging to vertical rock, buried in ice, or baking under desert heat, settlements have taken root in surroundings that push endurance to its edge. Generation after generation, they learn to bend with the harshness around them, shaping hostile ground into somewhere existence carries on. Travel with us now through the planet's most punishing places, where people endure in circumstances almost beyond belief. Our first stop follows a river with a terrible reputation. The Yellow River has unleashed some of the most lethal floods ever documented. Among them, the 1931 catastrophe, thought to have claimed somewhere between 1 and 4 million lives. Running roughly 3,395 miles, it ranks 6th among the planet's longest rivers, winding past 9 provinces, plus a string of autonomous regions, and crossing wildly different climates and heights. No waterway on Earth hauls more sediment, and when the floods arrive, a single cubic meter can hold as much as 75 pounds of silt, staining the flow a rich yellow. That enormous cargo of mud lets the delta push outward, adding somewhere near 8 to 12 square miles of fresh land every year. Where it empties into Shandong province, the muddy yellow current collides with the green Bohai Sea, drawing a sharp line of color that reaches far out from the coast. Sweeping over the Loess Plateau, its force gouges the terrain into steep ravines, tangled webs of gullies, and lonely towers of packed earth. Far to the south, at the very bottom of the world, sits the chilliest year-round outpost humans occupy. South Pole Station routinely drops below -50 degrees Celsius and once plunged to an astonishing -117 degrees Fahrenheit. The base sits atop an ice sheet that creeps about 33 feet each year, so the marker for the true geographic pole must be measured again and shifted every January 1st. Here the sun climbs into view a single time in September and slips away just once in March, giving half a year of unbroken light and then half a year of total night. To ease the crushing seclusion, the crew runs a hydroponic greenhouse, growing fresh vegetables and steadying the mind through those long stretches of artificial glow. Between February and October, the cold bites hard enough to freeze aircraft fuel, so no plane can arrive or leave, sealing the residents off from the outside entirely. Its current building stands lifted on 36 steel legs above the frozen ground, a design that limits piling snow and holds firm on the slowly moving ice. Elsewhere, a wound in the earth tells a different story. Mirny mine was the earliest and biggest industrial open-pit diamond works of the old Soviet Union, and it helped turn the nation into a leading diamond seller across the 20th century. A dirt spiral track wraps the giant pit, coiling from the top edge all the way down, and for decades it served as the single unbroken route hauling ore out. So steep and so long is that coil that belaz haulers, each tipping the scales at hundreds of tons, need over 2.5 hours to grind from the base up to ground level when fully loaded. The settlement of Mirny lies right against the rim of the dig, where years of explosions and ore hauling threw up dust that drifted into the homes close by. In cold this severe, engines are left idling around the clock so they never seize up. Frozen ground makes farming nearly impossible, so meals here lean heavily toward meat and fish suited to the Arctic world. Across the globe, another impossible place waits. Pitch Lake is reckoned the biggest and richest natural asphalt basin anywhere, its dark gray and black skin forever creeping and reshaping itself. The tar behaves like a slow, preserving machine, dragging branches, fossils, and stray objects under, then returning them almost untouched decades or even hundreds of years later. Broad bubbles of hydrocarbon and hydrogen sulfide swell up and pop without pause, filling the basin with hissing and gurgling. When the rains come, broad fissures fill up and link into a web of warm sulfur-laden ponds, resting straight on top of the tar. Tar dug from this very spot was shipped off to surface Pall Mall in London and to line the Lincoln Tunnel in New York. Roughly 20,000 travelers and a steady stream of geologists show up yearly, and the lake's rim stands in stark opposition to the thick tropical greenery pressing in around it. Thousands of miles away, the sky itself becomes the hazard. The village of Morsinram holds the title of the rainiest inhabited spot on the planet, soaked by roughly 467 inches of rain in an average year. That total towers over the worldwide norm, driven by its perch on the Meghalaya Plateau, where monsoon winds off the Indian Ocean, are shoved skyward and condense in a rush. With the air sitting close to fully saturated all year long, low clouds often wander straight through open windows and settle inside people's homes. Rather than ordinary umbrellas, locals strap on the nup, a rounded rain cover braided out of bamboo strips and banana leaf that leaves both hands loose during the fiercest showers. Through the monsoon months, the limestone walls ringing the village spill hundreds of short-lived waterfalls tumbling down into the valley beneath. The Khasi people also grow living bridges, coaxing the roots of Ficus elastica over the streams to form living spans that shrug off endless rain without rotting. The land itself turns dangerous at our next stop. Mount Etna towers as Europe's tallest and broadest active stratovolcano, rising over the island of Sicily and famous for how often it erupts. It ranks among the rare peaks able to blow flawless pale rings of vapor that hover over the crater whenever gas puffs out in quick bursts. Once summer arrives, ladybugs in their millions climb the slopes and cluster beside the live craters, tucking themselves among the heated stones for refuge. Ash and pumice enrich the ground so well that vineyards flourish right on top of hardened lava, yielding wines with a character all their own. Endless eruptions have coated the shore, stretching toward Catania in black basalt sand, ground down from broken lava and ash. Two ski resorts even run along its flanks, carrying visitors across a mountain that still fires off eruptions from time to time. Far inland, the map turns to blank emptiness. Lop Nur counts among China's 4 biggest and most perilous unpopulated zones, and it sits among the driest ground anywhere on the Eurasian landmass. Here the thirst of the air outpaces the yearly rain by roughly 300 times, which drained the old lake away and laid bare enormous sheets of salt. Seen from orbit, The parched basin traces ring after ring, like a colossal ear pressed into the planet's skin. Under that crust rests a huge store of potash, turning this wasteland into a leading hub for making potassium fertilizer. From 1964 to 1996, this ground absorbed 45 nuclear trials, among them the nation's earliest detonations of atomic and hydrogen weapons. Summer air pushes past 104 degrees Fahrenheit, while the ground itself can climb near 158 degrees Fahrenheit, and still wild Bactrian camels endure by learning to drink the salty water. Deep in the frozen north stands a city that perhaps should not exist. Norilsk is the most northerly urban center on Earth, with more than 100,000 residents, raised out of the remote Siberian tundra. During winter, snowstorms can swallow the lower floors of apartment towers, driving people to carve tunnels through the drifts, while heating runs non-stop to keep the pipes from freezing solid. The place operates as a sealed city, where outsiders need special clearance and every arrival and departure falls under tight control. Heavy metal smelting has dyed the Daldakan River crimson whenever spills occur, and clouds of sulfur dioxide have scorched the plant life and worsened breathing troubles for those who live here. The city bears roughly 45 days of polar darkness and 68 days when the sun never sets, throwing body clocks into chaos and lifting rates of seasonal despair, which is why employees are paid more, granted longer leave, and allowed to retire early to make up for such brutal conditions. In the heart of Europe lies a silence born of catastrophe. The Chernobyl exclusion zone spreads across about 2,600 square kilometers, an immense hollow of abandoned land left behind by the nuclear disaster of 1986. After the blast, the pine woods beside the reactor soaked up intense radiation and turned into the red forest, in which countless dead trunks refused to rot for decades once the microbes and insects had been wiped out. Over in Pripyat, the fairground and its yellow Ferris wheel, never once open to the public, hardened into a lasting emblem of ordinary life, cut short as over 49,000 people were cleared out in a matter of days. Thousands of fire trucks, helicopters, and army machines from the cleanup were dumped and left in open lots, too poisoned to reuse, and over time they became fresh sources of radiation in their own right. Even with settlement formally forbidden, a few hundred older people slipped back to their houses, tending modest gardens and living on ground where radiation swings wildly from one patch to the next. The contamination scatters unevenly, so a main road may be fairly harmless while a step into the moss or split earth beside it spikes the count thousands of times over, forcing anyone who moves to keep a personal dosimeter always at hand. On a brighter shore, human hands reshaped the rock itself. Tanah Barak Beach in Bali is marked by a sealed road cut clean through a towering limestone mass, forming a strange gateway that opens right onto the ocean. In the local tongue, Tanah Barak translates to red land, an odd label given the gleaming golden and white limestone walls and the soft pale sand that fill the view. Rather than curving a path around the outcrop as one might expect, officials brought in heavy machines to cleave the limestone rise in two and drive a straight line down to the sea. The sea reeds crystalline, glowing a bright turquoise that leaps out against the sleek white beach whenever the sun strikes it. Close to 90% of the crowd arrives chiefly to capture that striking road slicing through the cliffs, which has grown more celebrated than the beach lying at its far end. The stone changes from brilliant white at noon into gold or warm orange as the sun goes down, and the whole scene stays wide open, since no sprawling resorts yet crowd the horizon. Along a haunted stretch of African shore, the sea keeps its trophies. The skeleton coast is held to have the thickest gathering of shipwrecks on Earth, with over 1,000 ruined vessels strewn down its sands thanks to heavy fog and unseen reefs. Relentless winds keep reworking the coastline, driving sand inland until ships that once sank offshore now rest hundreds of yards inland from the surf, marooned among the dunes. Its shore is strewn with corroding hulls, and the sun-bleached bones of whales and seals laid bare across the sand. Fierce sandstorms are able to shove tons of grit around and completely redraw the dunes in the span of one night. For all its harshness, the region still shelters wild black rhinos, the remarkably long, living Welwitschia mirabilis plant that may last beyond 1,000 years, alongside desert lions that stalk seals right along the surf. The park's northern reaches carry almost no roads at all and stay firmly closed off, reachable only by a handful of expeditions and chartered planes. Back on dry land, heat reaches a fearsome extreme. Death Valley stands as the biggest national park in the contiguous 48 states, sprawling over more than 5,000 square miles of merciless desert. Averaging only about 2 inches of rain a year, it sometimes goes whole years without a single measurable drop. Over at Racetrack Playa, stones that weigh dozens of pounds slide across the cracked lakebed as thin sheets of ice form, thaw, and let the wind nudge them along at just a few yards each minute. In the Eureka Dunes, bone-dry grains grinding against one another as they tumble downhill give off a deep humming note people call booming sand. About once every 10 years, unusual winter rains wake millions of sleeping wildflower seeds, which blossom for a fleeting spell over the valley floor. The broken remnants of old mining towns like Rhyolite and Skidoo record guttural surges of wealth and equally sudden ruin during the historic rushes for gold, silver, and borax. Far north again, riches lie locked beneath frozen ground. The Yamal Peninsula guards Russia's biggest natural gas reserves, holding world-class fields like Bovinenkovo, spread over Arctic tundra, sitting atop permafrost. The enormous Yamal LNG venture and its neighboring extraction sites are built straight onto that icy earth, always at risk of sinking as the temperature swings. The greater part of the peninsula is bare, treeless tundra clothed in moss, lichen, and stunted shrubs that hang on through savage winds and the long swings between endless night and endless day. The native Nenets number merely in the tens of thousands, and yet they herd around 300,000 herded reindeer, so the animals far outnumber the people. The permafrost has kept ancient creatures intact, among them the Luba mammoth, some 42,000 years old, unearthed in 2007. The Nenets still live on the move, sheltering in cone-shaped, reindeer hide tents known as Chuman trekking, as far as 750 miles each year to keep pace with the brutal turn of the seasons. Sculpted by time and water, another landscape defies belief. The Yellow River Stone Forest holds one of the thickest and most expansive fields of sandstones spires in northwestern China, raised along the banks of the Yellow River. At its heart runs a gorge reaching about 5.6 miles, walled by upright cliffs, as the Yellow River loops in a sweeping S-curve across an otherwise parched land. The faces of these stone towers show banded texture and shifting color, carved out by water and wind across thousands of years. Reaching the valley within means driving a steep mountain track that bends through 22 tight hairpins cut into the hillside. Many of the columns have worn into shapes that echo beasts, human faces, or building outlines, all the work of erosion eating away at different rates. High in the mountains, beauty comes braided with death. Annapurna carries the deadliest record of any 8,000-meter giant, near 32%, which means about one climber in 3 who reaches for its top has never come back. The range runs roughly 34 miles and lifts one summit past 26,000 feet, 13 more above 23,000 feet, and 16 beyond 19,000 feet. Its sheer rock architecture and the huge overhanging seracs feed a constant threat of avalanches breaking loose on their own. In Sanskrit, the name Annapurna speaks of a goddess of the harvest, and yet the peak has turned into one of the deadliest arenas a climber can enter. One winding trail passes through everything from warm subtropical woodland to dry uplands, and finally to peaks buried in permanent snow. Annapurna 1 was first conquered back in 1950 with no bottled oxygen at all, and the area still gives wild refuge to snow leopards and Himalayan blue sheep. On a distant island, the water itself churns and steams. Boiling Lake spans somewhere between 197 and 249 feet wide, outsized in surface area by just one other boiling lake anywhere on Earth. This is no ordinary lake, but a drowned fumarole, where water trickles down from above and touches the searing magma pockets waiting below. Along the rim, the heat sits somewhere near 180 to 198 degrees Fahrenheit, though its middle roils so wildly that no one has ever pinned down an exact figure. Its milky gray-blue shade rises from dissolved sulfur and minerals, forming a poisonous, punishing place where nothing living can hold on. Getting there demands a there and back trek of roughly 6 to 7 miles over steep ground, where unseen fissures beside the path vent scalding steam right at your feet. In a lonely Icelandic valley, one rusting ghost keeps watch. Gardar BA64 sits by itself in Skapadala Valley on the edge of Patreksfjordur, out in the West Fjords, among the most isolated corners of Iceland. It claims the honor of being the oldest steel ship ever to work these waters. In service for 69 years, from 1912 all the way to 1981. Rather than slipping under the waves, the hull was beached on a low pebble strand beside Route 612, and it has turned into a familiar pause for travelers bound for the Latrabjarg cliffs. The corroded steel frame, tinted red and orange, throws itself against the grey beach, the dark blue water, and the ring of mountains behind. Fog and gentle rain settle in often, wrapping the whole scene in a hushed, mournful mood. People are free to walk right up and lay a hand on the weathered metal, though stepping inside the wreck is banned for the sake of safety. High in the Andes glimmers a lake as beautiful as it is deadly. Laguna Verde ranks among the most arsenic-saturated waters on Earth, leaving it all but lifeless for nearly every fish and bird. Perched at great height, it endures cold that routinely sinks under freezing and can fall dozens of degrees beneath 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and still it seldom ices over because its heavy load of minerals works like a built-in antifreeze. Its hue never holds steady, flaring into brilliant turquoise only when powerful gusts churn the mineral beds up from below. On calm days, the water looks murky and lifeless, mirroring the chemical silt lying quiet underneath. That vivid green owes nothing to algae and everything to a poisonous brew of arsenic, lead, copper, and magnesium carbonate dissolved throughout. Laguna Verde still counts as a marquee stop on the 3- and 4-day jeep runs that roam the Salar de Uyuni salt flats. A river that drowned millions, a station where fuel freezes solid, a pit gouged into permafrost, a rift split by 130 craters. In every one of these places, the natural world made its position perfectly clear. You are not welcome here. And in every one of them, people stayed anyway. They adapted, they endured, and they built entire lives inside that refusal. Hardship, it seems, never broke the human habit of settling down. It only sharpened it. So the next time an ordinary day feels heavy, remember these places. Then tell us below which one you could never survive.